Week 6 of the fantasy football season is here, and we have got some big injuries. Some season-changing injuries to some of the most impactful players in all of best ball and all of fantasy football. We're going to break it all down here. What does this mean going forward? Even look at our new fancy leaderboards for Best Ball Mania and drafters and see some of the top highest scoring teams. Which of these players are on those teams who could shake up fantasy football, and look ahead to week 6 and what we can expect this week in the best ball landscape. Let's do it on Spike Week Sickos.
3, 2, 1, liftoff.
You know, this is hold on. I got to get this one out.
All right.
You know that this is a sickness, a show talking that we're going to dive into all sorts of fun and maybe not so fun conversations. But this is totally my fault that we are 3 minutes late because I got caught up in a conversation about Jaleel McLaughlin. And, should we have figured out to draft Jaleel McLaughlin over the summer? And spoiler alert is no, that you shouldn't have. But those are the kinds of things we talk about here that, of course, he's a waiver wire type guy in season long spaces, but those are the things that I waste my time on, Tuesdays at around dinner time that are my fault that delayed the show, but lots to talk about here. Clearly a little bit more of a somber Tuesday, I think, for a lot of people and a lot of teams that we've drafted here. But I am at least kind of interested to see, what this means. I haven't processed all of it, so I'm excited to talk it through with Jefferson and Achane and James Conner and so much, already adding on to the guys that have already gotten hurt through 5 weeks.
And it actually feels like football season now. It's 6:30 p.m. Eastern here. It's been dark for about 4 hours. Everyone's going into a nice depression. Like, it is football season, baby. It is seasonal depression awareness time. We are ready.
It really is. It really is. And it is so true. Like, oh, you drafted Achane, you're a genius, right? You got 30% Devin Achane on your teams. Well, it's dark outside before dinner, and he's hurt for a long time. So congratulations to that. Oh, you got some really sweet Justin Jefferson and Achane and, Mike Williams. And, you got all these guys on the team. Congratulations. That team's dead. It's over. It's fifth in the BBM regular season or something. And now that dream is over. But it is, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and we'll continue to talk about it and have talked about it. Bye weeks, injuries, chaos. We're going to look back at the end of this season, and the things that we've been thinking about just through these first 5 weeks are like, a lot of it's going to be irrelevant. We're going to have different opinions, right? Justin Jefferson, who knows what happens the rest of the way with him? They're bad. They're going to be really, really bad without him. Who knows how many games they win, right? The whole landscape shakes up. We're 5 weeks in. We think we have all this information. We have this wealth of knowledge. We know all the answers to the test. And we say every year, like, it's early, man. So much chaos is going to happen. And poof, week 5, just immediately, obviously the consensus 101 goes down. Who knows when he'll be back? And what we called the MVP of fantasy football and best ball so far in Devin Achane goes down for who knows how long. We don't even know exactly what's going on. I don't think they've even released exactly what the injury is for him, at least the last I checked, to add on to other guys who were great picks that have gone down, right? Mike Williams and Nick Chubb and even James Conner, who we didn't really like, and we weren't really on. The Cardinals has been, not amazing, but producing fantasy points for sure at a decent price. Just so much stuff happens that, like, it's easy to get caught in the roller coaster, right? You're going up and you're feeling all that emotion of going up, and then it goes down. Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of more of these that are going to happen. You can't worry too much about, your stomach dropping on the last one, because it's going to happen a lot more by the time we get to the end of this road in week 17.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this earlier today as we get the information on these 3 specific players that we're going to go over. And the first thing we all do is we rush to our important best ball teams, whatever we deem our important teams, right? Quote unquote. For me, it's the Mastiff and a couple other, like a couple BBMs, a couple drafters teams. I'm doing well in some DraftKings single entry stuff as well. And it's like, well, are these guys on these teams? And then I started looking to see who in front of me had them. Right. So for instance, in the Mastiff, I think I'm 4th. and that advances 6 out of 12. And I'm like, do the guys in front of me have these guys, or are the guys behind me have these guys? And every one of these guys was on a team behind me. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. And would you rather, on a day like this for important teams, and I know it might differ based on advance rates, but would you rather these guys be on teams that are already behind you to make it even more impossible to catch up? Or would you rather them be on teams in front of you that you're trying to catch? And I could see it both ways. I kind of like them being on teams behind me in single entry and stuff that advances more than 2 teams, because it drops that anchor more on those teams, right? Like, it's just so much harder to come back from that. Like, you're already behind and you lose Justin Jefferson, or you're already behind and you lose Devin Achane. Like, it feels like the impossible hill to climb. So I think we're not rooting for injuries, but like, it's part of the game, as we've talked about before, and all that stuff. So like, the game theory is, my thought process went to, would I rather be behind teams with these or in front of teams with these? And I was kind of curious your thoughts on it.
That's a really good question that I actually haven't thought, but it's funny. It's one of those things that we all absolutely experience, right? Like you said, the injuries, and it's not even always just injuries, right? Guys get benched, or guys get traded, or just all the different layers of chaos that happen over the course of the season. And every time it happens, as you said, you either go, like, I'll go to Draft IQ and I'm like, let me look at these Justin Jefferson. Like, how many Justin Jefferson teams am I advancing? Because, oh shit, I'm in trouble, right? How many Achane teams do I have? Because they're in trouble, and where are they sitting? And then, like you said, my most important teams, right? I got a couple of good. I drafted 5 DK 555 teams. I have basically 2 that are good, one that's like maybe average, and 2 that are absolutely terrible. I hit the goddamn lotto. We talk about hitting parlays in best ball, like how 8 leg, 10 leg, 18 leg parlays in best ball. I hit the parlay on all of the injured dudes on one team. And so that was kind of a nice thing. Like, you don't want, you don't want injuries, and you don't want your teams to suck, but at least I found Chubb, Mike Williams, Dobbins, like everything. I think Garrett Wilson, I want to say, is like even on that team. So he didn't get hurt, but Aaron Rodgers did, and it was like every Deontay is on that team, who's going to be back. But of course, like everything. But to that point, you go look, everybody does.
Yeah.
But I haven't thought about, I think what my mind goes to first is, does my team have them? Of course, the first thing. And then I do think I look at the teams ahead of me, and I think my natural reaction is caring more about the teams in front of them having me, because I want to breathe more life into my team, I guess. Like, I'm always thinking about, how do I catch that team that's in front of me? How do I catch that team that's in front of me? But I actually think, if I'm really gal-braining it, what I would want is my teams in my league, probably to be the guys behind me, assuming that I don't have them, assuming that I have a decent enough team. And then in other leagues, I want them to be the winning team. I want them to be the first place team has Achane, as opposed to the lesser teams, because I want the really good teams to get knocked out by in the other pools. You know what I mean? I want the shittier teams to come through in the other pools, whereas I want to just like take my coin flip, or less than a coin flip. Like, if I'm in 4th, right, I'm like, it's fine, bury everybody behind me, so I know I'm only competing against these 3 teams or 2 teams or whatever. So I haven't thought about that one, but that's an interesting one, because of exactly like you said, everybody does it. Everybody goes, oh shit, Jefferson's out. You're like, I know I have Jefferson on this one really good team. Fuck, can I survive? Right? Achane. I have Achane on. I posted earlier today on Twitter. I have 2 really good. I mean, Drafters is going pretty well, but I'm in first in the high roller, the 250 there right now, and I have Achane and Khalil Herbert, and my running backs were already not particularly good with those 2. So we're in like Brian Robinson, we need a good month here, buddy. Like, we are in please God, Brian Robinson, do some stuff territory. And I it's funny, because I felt good. My team that's in 14th in the $20 on Drafters has Achane, but actually it's almost like I am like not happy about it so long as he returns, but I'm actually pretty good at running back there. So it's kind of one of those things. It's going to hurt I think the team's in front of me a little more than me. Of course, it's going to hurt me because I've been using his score most weeks, but I think I can weather that storm of an Achane team better maybe than some others. So that's another element to it too, right? Like who has it around me, whether it's in my league or on drafters or whatever, and then can I even like make up the ground, or do I have him and can I weather that storm? Right. It's all that nuance, but I do really like thinking about that, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think it does depend on the format. So for me, as I was thinking about it, I like that the players behind me on the Mastiff have it when you have a 6 out of 12 advance, because it's just so different. Because if we can anchor 2 teams to the bottom and then we're just doing 6 out of 10 advance, like your odds of return on investment are up tremendously. But to the point you were just bringing up as you're talking about it, these injuries, they're key to every single best ball team you draft, but no more than the drafters teams that are just absolutely slaying with Justin Jefferson, Devon Achane, and some of them having James Conner. You're going to start seeing some swings, because not only are those players out, we've talked about this before, the bye weeks are hitting. So we're hitting bye weeks. We're hitting these major injuries. You're going to start seeing some of these roller coasters you go on and the drafters championship specifically. And I hate to do it to you, but like in like 3 or 4 weeks, I'm probably going to be in first in the high roller. So.
If Brian Robinson and Alexander Madison don't score a lot of points, I will not be in first for very long. I will tell you.
We'll pass each other on the way by. And I'll just say, hey, what's up?
That is for sure. But it is. I do want to pull up we launched. We've had the drafters leaderboard up, but we beefed it up. Shout out Hacker, of course, the wizard behind the scenes, and we got Best Ball Mania 4 leaderboard up as well, so you can track the regular season stuff. I know that Underdog wasn't able to get out a leaderboard that they were really hoping to get out, so they released the CSVs and allowed us to do it. And of course, with the wizard on the 1s and 2s, we were able to spin that baby up in less than a week or whatever. But I did just want to pull up the drafter stuff. Shout out to the Spike Weekers, because you see we have it in green here if they're a Spike Week user, and we have like 6 of the top 30 places. Nice. I think in the drafters, including obviously Cutler for Life here first. I think this is the this is very true. You are a freaking nerd. My God, you are a nerd. But just super quick, I wanted to run down because these teams are kind of interesting, right? I think this is let me refresh this because I feel like this was something different than what I was looking at. But like you said, in drafters or the different formats, here's BBM. Let's just go ahead and look at that real quick. Since I have it up already, go to the premium leaderboard so you can see ownership and all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, this is what I had it totally wrong because I thought that the first place team on drafters had Richardson, but it's the first place team in BBM, right? And so this team just blew my mind, but also it's in big trouble, which is one of those things that it's up by 6 points in first, loses Anthony Richardson, who we actually haven't even talked about, right? Who's been pretty impactful. Despite missing games, he's dropping 30 in the games that he plays, and then loses Achane. Does have a really good running back room, generally speaking, despite losing Achane. And has the old handcuff with Mostert there. But the double elite tight end is certainly not something I thought that I was going to see, and I feel like this is one of those things where you start to get some injuries, right? So Puka's still good, but Puka's not quite as good. Just not quite as good. He's still very good to have. I want him on my teams. But Rondale, Jonathan Mingo, Chris Olave is your wide receiver 1, and the Saints don't look awesome. And then you have double tight end. The running backs are okay, but now you only have Pickett and Howell. It's like, this team is awesome. This team is absolutely awesome. But you're going to start to hit just a couple of injuries, and the bye weeks start. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, man, wide receiver gets real thin real fast. And so that's things are going to shake up a ton. And it's not even because this team is bad. This team is amazing. Obviously 835 points is absurd. But once we reach this point and the chaos starts and the bye weeks start, it gets really, really tough. It's hard to explain the chaos until we'll get later in the season, and the really this isn't poorly built, but the poorly built teams will really struggle to weather the chaos. Whereas the teams that maybe didn't even hit on everybody, but are just built to withstand the chaos, are just going to rise above.
Well, this team also said, we are going to show you that correlation is something we do not need. Do you think I'm stacking Anthony Richardson? No. Am I stacking Kenny Pickett? No. Am I stacking Sam Howell? Absolutely not. Like, what? I mean, kudos to them because they're doing better than I'm doing. So
we got two the only correlation, I guess Rashad White and Chris Olave. So they believe in week 17 correlations, and they believe in handcuffing the running backs, both of which clearly proven to be good, so to be pretty good so far. But yeah, not a lot of stacking. And I think that's we don't need to dive into like, do you have to stack and all that kind of stuff, because obviously it's probably too nuanced to discuss here. But I just thought that the team was really interesting and not what you would expect to be winning a regular season contest, right? Like if you would have dreamed up the first round pick, that like where would you have said if you had to rank the top 12 and said where would you put Kelsey in your like probability of being in the first place regular season team out of like the top 12? It had to be towards the bottom, right?
I think it would have been. I think if you asked somebody, it would have either been top 3 or bottom 3. I don't think Kelsey would have ever made it to anybody's middle, right? Like because they're thinking that the position of Kelsey, he's either scorching the earth or he's absolutely killing.
No, I mean,
you.
What about like the results? Like not knowing you've seen this team. We've seen the first 5 weeks.
I would have said bottom 3 for sure.
Because
I thought you meant before the season.
No.
Yeah.
Well, before the season, I think it would have been reasonable. I'm very surprised. It's both with the results and from the offseason. No matter when you ask me this question, if you would have said Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews team, I would have said you're fucking high. There's no chance that team is winning. Like literally, I flipped open. I flipped this open today after we launched it, and I was like, they're winning first in the regular season points. I'm like, they both missed week 1, didn't they? They both missed. He got a 0 at tight end from his first 2 picks or whatever in a week, and he has the most regular season points. Just crazy, but also how good the first round has been, which has been a little bit of a rarity over the course of the last few years. We get some down performances and some injuries. Of course, now we do get Justin Jefferson, but like my highest scoring team on Underdog is Jamar Chase, which tells you a lot about how impactful the huge games are, right? Scoring 25 every week is really good. It's really important. It's great. We want that. But like when you score 55 or whatever he did, and like the third highest scoring wide receiver is like 30, that's actually can oftentimes be a lot more impactful because you're separating from the field. And so I just thought it was really, really fascinating to see this team. And there's certainly some really, really good ones. Again, if you're a subscriber to Spike Week, you can choose the premium leaderboard here, and that's what you can see. Obviously, the whole team, the amount of points that they have added to that team, but then also their ownership percentage. So you can see like Kyron is 2% owned, Puka is 3% owned. There was a couple other interesting one, like low owned guys on here, I thought really quickly. RIP Mac Hollins. Now he's with Van Jefferson coming to town. But most of these teams have like a couple of these guys contributing at pretty low ownership. But yeah,
seen a lot of elite quarterbacks after that first team.
It's funny.
Through.
Yeah, you get. I found we talked about this. We talk about this every week, but I think the quarterback thing still is very clearly undecided at this point. I think you can have a really good team. You can have really bad teams with both, but you can have really good teams with elite quarterback or with late round quarterback. You have to hit right. You had to get like Howell and Ritter and Purdy or something, those kind of guys, not Mac Jones and not Ryan Tannehill and not, CJ Stroud you would like. But then you can also obviously make a good team with elite. You can also, I guess we call Fields elite, right? But you can make a Fields team instead of there's a bunch of Allen and Fields. Tua has been great. Quarterback has definitely not been the deciding factor as of yet. Whereas last year it was a little more like Hurts was so much cheaper and just went scorched earth on everybody, and Lawrence kind of did too. That it was a little bit more of those guys separating, as opposed to this year it's a little more wide open.
Yeah, and we're seeing all different types of constructions as we scroll through this. You see a lot of 3 QBs, some 2 QBs. We see 3 tight end, 2 tight end. The wide receiver allocations all over the board. Mm-hmm. Just the one constant is Achane. Like you had to basically have him.
Let me see. And that's what I do love about this is you can search for a player and see, it'll filter down to all the teams with him. And you quickly see first, second, third, fourth. Okay, 5th place doesn't have him. So what's the fifth? What's the 5th place team? Fenny 34 has Pollard. Interesting.
Wow.
To have a Pollard team up there. Tyreek, Keenan, DJ Moore wow. This is really interesting. Actually, Miami stack has Mostert to benefit from that. This guy might be the new favorite and leader in the clubhouse. Tua stack with a best Pollard team in the whole tournament. Has Mostert to benefit from the Achane injury. Wide receivers are really good. Got Deontay coming back. Doesn't have the Rams, which is not necessarily good, but everybody else has everybody else has Achane and the Rams, and he doesn't have any of those guys. So pretty interesting team. It would be getting sweaty in the old house if I had Fenny's team here.
Interesting tight end room as well, because when we were looking, we saw a lot of elites, or we saw a lot of punt, and he has 2 mid-round tight ends with Schultz and Kmet. So his construction is really different from everybody else's. So that's a team to like kind of bookmark. He does stack with his quarterbacks other than Howell, which we know like that was probably a late round Howell pick. It would be my guess.
Yeah. For
this particular team, and he just was firing a third QB, maybe trying to get like some sort of backdoor stack and just missed it. But that's a fun constructed team.
Yeah, I also like the same thing with the quarterbacks. I feel about the tight ends that obviously, we've had different guys that have had some big games, and Kmet as one. Schultz just had his first good game, and Kmet has had a couple, including one really big game. Kittle just had, so like we see Kittle on the 4th place team. He's had, and Kmet. There is a lot of Kmet up here, which makes me feel really bad because I did not draft much Cole Kmet, so that's probably not too shocking. But I think it's tight end is also a little bit all over the place, right? If you just I would still call this largely punting tight end. They're both double-digit round guys. It's not like what we classify it in terms of like just 3 super late tight ends. But like most people would take 3. I think most people in the field would take 3 with Schultz as their first tight end. And this guy just said, no, I'm going to win it with these 2. And
one with a third QB instead of the third tight end.
And he's needed Howell. Right, Howell's contributed the most Howell's scored more points in his lineup than fucking Tua has, and Pickett has scored none. So he's needed him now. He's set up pretty nicely he's set up really like Pollard and the no Achane and the Steelers stack. I'm not saying that the Steelers stack is something you're excited about, but in terms of like ownership and leverage, nobody has a lot of these guys that he has up there. And so this is a fun team. And anyway, I just thought the tight end thing was interesting because it's a little similar to the quarterback, where we have a lot of hard and fast rules and everybody has really strong beliefs about the onesie positions, but really like it doesn't matter that much. Like it really, like everything is driven by, did you hit on XYZ running back and wide receiver, and the playoffs will be different, but for over the course of the regular season, you just need to pop a little bit, right? Cole Kmet gets you 1-2 good games. Schultz gets you 1 good game. That's only 3 good games in 5 weeks. It's not like he's like racking up tons of tight end points. And so it matters a little less, but I'll be interested to see how that changes too. The tight end thing will definitely evolve over time.
So we got team 7 in the chat right now. So we should look at that team as you're scrolling to it. Something I've been noticing, like I'm noticing it even more as we go through this. For positional allocation, I don't think I'm going more than 5 running backs on teams next year. It just, even on like the teams that I'm waiting on RB, you're waiting on RB to hit. It just feels like 5 RBs is kind of where you should be for the most part, based on what I'm seeing advance in some of my groupings and then what we're looking at on this board. It's almost 5 RB, 5 RB, 5 RB, 5 RB. And it's a cornucopia of different types of players. So I think that's one thing that stood out to me, but we can hit on this team 7.
I think one big thing I would add to that is what you do see with most of these teams. So like there's 6 with Rachaad White as the RB1, right? ETN as the RB1, you get 5. This is kind of like how when we're building a hero running back team, you could maybe draft 6. I agree, but like ETN all the way down to right. So Montgomery was like what in the 80s. and Dylan was, around, we'll pick 100, and these guys were, depending upon when this was drafted, anywhere from 120 to 150 or whatever. So 5 seems to fit there. It's like all hero running back builds, like kind of 2-5-9-2, right, or 3-5-8-2 or whatever. I think it makes a lot of sense. And then it's mostly like,
maybe there's more 6 than I thought.
6 here. But again, here's your super straightforward Tony Pollard hero running back build with late-ish quarterbacks, right? So if some people might take out Howell and flip him into a tight end here, but or take out Howell and turn him into a wide receiver or whatever. But I think generally speaking, it's lots of these hero running back builds. And the only thing I'll say about the running back stuff is, right now it's going to feel better to have a thinner running back room because it's only we're only through 5 weeks. When we get to week 17, like we're going to have
also true.
We're going to have a lot more injuries and more guys coming out of nowhere or whatever. And so you do need to be able to weather that storm. Now, the flip side is also true. If like all 5 of these guys, right, just stay healthy and have big years, then you don't want those extra picks. You need to find Howell or Komet or whatever. But it's really interesting. Let's look at Rough Riders team. I think I mentioned his possibly on Twitter or in Discord or something. Like, my God, can you nail the running backs? Like, especially now that we have this Achane news, like any better other than I guess Kyron, right? Doesn't have Kyron, but Ken Walker has been awesome in the 4th, 5th round. Swift obviously winning that job with Philly. David Montgomery has been great, and then Gibbs has been out, so he's been awesome. And then you are in 7th without Achane, but you have the other 2 Dolphins running backs with 2 superstar quarterbacks. Goddard finally popped up for a good game. We'll see if Freiermuth comes back. The only thing is I'm fascinated to see if a wide receiver room like this can hold up, because it gets, Diggs is just doing his thing. DJ Moore is like the wide receiver 2 in fantasy, I believe. And Nico has been huge for this team, but it is a little bit thin there. So I'll be interested. I'm really, really interested to see how this team holds up with the wide receiver scoring specifically, because everything else is freaking awesome on this team.
It feels like it's missing one wide receiver, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, take Freiermuth out of here. I know Freiermuth has contributed 18 points, so you'd be a little less or whatever, but you might have been able to make, right, if you had Puka, like put Puka on the, I know it's always easy to pick the guy who hits, right?
Yeah,
but I don't know, the Kendrick Bourne week 1 might have added the 18 points that you needed, maybe not totally 18 points, but just a body, like an upside body at wide receiver is like the one thing this team is missing from being just unreal. And it basically already is unreal. And this says, Rough Rider says he drafted this team in June. So shout out freaking June. Apparently I'm just only going to draft on Underdog in June next year. And he drafted Dawson Knox over Sam Laporta. I try not to just besmirch the teams that are possibly going to win $500,000 from that you drafted. You clearly drafted a good team, but what the fuck are you doing drafting Dawson Knox over
Josh Allen,
Sam Laporta? I don't give a shit.
We see why though. Like, I see the thought process behind it. What I think is more impressive, here was a leak in my game that we were talking about. So one thing we hit on as we were going over the offseason was 2 running backs from one team, and Miami was one of the teams we actually pinpointed on this, where we were like, we would be fine with taking 2 RBs from Miami. What we should have dovetailed that into is that problem we were identifying with Tua, where we knew we liked Tua, we knew we liked Miami. We said Tua was the hardest quarterback to draft in drafts because you thought you had to have either Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and if you didn't have him, he kind of, for most people, just left your brain. You didn't even consider Tua. And here's Rough Riders with this genius idea of, I can still double stack Tua. I just need to do it with both of his running backs. I actually kind of love it, to be honest with you. I think it's great in terms of it allows you to get your Tua exposure, it allows you to get the double stack with him in a completely unique way that I just personally wouldn't have done. And I'm making mental notes on it right now for next year. I think it's very team specific that I would do this with. But if there is a team that we are targeting, sort of like Miami next year, if we decide there's another quote unquote Miami Dolphins or Miami Dolphins light, and we're not able to get that running back, I think we could have. It wouldn't be as good, but I think we could have even done this with Philadelphia this year. We could have
Yeah.
said we like Hurts. We can do it with DeAndre Swift. I mean, I don't like Rashad Penny, but you could have done it with both of those guys. You
Gainwell,
could
of
have
course.
done it with Gainwell as well, and done two of the RBs with Hurts when he was a hard quarterback to stack. It'd be kind of like the reverse of the Tua based on where you were drafting them. But I think that's something that I'm mentally bookmarking for next year, just after looking at this team.
I like it. I definitely, these are all the kinds of things I want to spend more time thinking about, and of course looking through some data, but also, like I said, just thinking about the thought process behind it. Because when you do look at this team, it's really interesting because it's definitely first round Diggs, second round Allen, third round Debo is how he started. Then Ken Walker or DJ Moore. I don't remember what that, probably DJ Moore than Ken Walker. But anyway, it's really, really interesting because there is feasibly no way that you could have stacked the Dolphins and the Bills without doing it this way, basically. I guess if Josh Allen fell to you in the third round, that would, take, so you get Diggs, Waddle, Allen, then take Tua later. I'm sure that there are teams that have that, but it's pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also do it this way. You know what I mean? And like you said, definitely nobody's doing this. Tua with both of his running backs, but then also having the Bills side of that thing. This is a very rare team. Now, I think on one hand, you would much rather have, a Tyreek or a Waddle with your Tua in a vacuum. But like, again, we don't get to do, like, this isn't a salary cap game. We don't get to just pick the players that we put on the team. You know what I mean? We are in snake drafts and we only get to do so many of them over the course of a summer. And so it's like, do you want any Dolphins and Bills? Like, and you did 75 drafts. You don't have any Bills and Dolphins stacks together. At a certain point, you got to just fucking do it. You know what I mean? You can't, like, it's easy to say like, oh, I'll just let the draft come to me or whatever. It's like, but then you have zero of things that you don't want to have zero of. So it's always that balance. And so I'll be thinking about this one for sure. I think most years there's going to be very, very, it's going to be rare that this type of thing makes sense. And the Dolphins are certainly a bit of a unicorn, and the Bills being so expensive, but it also doesn't have to be that thing that we learn our lesson from. It can be like, that can inspire a different idea, right? Like,
right.
This can inspire next year. You're like, remember when we saw Rough Riders team and he did this with the Dolphins? Well, what if we tweaked it and did this, right? It's like those kinds of things that I learned the biggest lessons from. It's not just, everybody else tries to just copy the shit that worked last year. And it's like, don't do that. Like, but learn lessons from it that you can now expand upon it or tweak it around and do something advantageous the next year. And I like this one.
Yeah. And if it's Hurts next year again with the two wide receivers, how can we still stack Jalen Hurts if we want Jalen Hurts? Or we might have to do it with the Dolphins again. It might be a different team, but I think that is definitely the lesson to learn. And I think the other thing to just quickly hit for the point you brought up is we kind of identify the top 6 or 7 offenses every year. And like, these are the teams we want. And I think even if we've built a ton of tools to see those things, but writing stuff down sometimes, like having a board where you write those 7 teams down and just like put a check mark after you've combined those 2 teams or something, just so that you can visually see it as you're drafting, could be something for certain people. Definitely myself, because it helps me when I write it sometimes to see the teams that I have together, so that I'm making sure I don't have 5 drafts left and I'm like, oh shit, I don't have Dolphins Bills, or oh shit, I have 145 teams. I have to look at my Spike Week tools because I don't know if I have Dolphins Bills. Right. So I think using a combination of using the tools as well as physically writing it down for myself and others might help as well.
I totally agree. Just a couple other things I wanted to point out. Then I do want to look at the drafters leaderboard quickly. Then we can talk a little more in depth about some of these injuries. And of course, just a quick overview of week 6. I know the thumbnail says week 6. We'll talk about week 6, but we're kind of discussing a little bit of the forward thinking projections. Swellness Jay got to be the only motherfucker that drafted Brock Wright in Best Ball Mania and just casually sitting in 11th with Brock Wright at the ADC showing up at 0%. So he's sub 1%. So very, very interesting.
With that Ryan Tannehill, Chig Okonkwo. This is
Big
Trev's
dog.
burner, isn't it?
Yeah. what a team. It does have MVS, Gabe Davis. You see, well, the other thing I do want to mention, a nuke is on here. This is a Titans friggin' onslaught sitting in 11th.
In 11th.
A Titans onslaught with Brock Wright is in 11th place.
Why am I poor?
It is funny sometimes when you see these teams, because we talk about, like, well, again, we'll get into next summer and we'll be diagnosing all this guy was a good pick, this guy was a bad pick, right? Here's what we should have done, here's what we did wrong. And then you pull up these good teams and you're like, dude, everybody thinks all the Titans were horrible picks and the guy is in contention to win 500 grand with a fucking Titans onslaught with Brock Wright. It's like, this game is just silly. Sometimes we try to like think that we have all the answers, and he has Jamar Chase, who didn't score any points before last week. Nuke didn't score any points before last week. He's just been carried by, the Dolphins, right? Josh Allen's being good. Derrick Henry's been okay. His running backs have just been awesome, obviously. And then DJ Moore has been awesome. So it's just funny. Sometimes it's like this weird layering effect of points more than it is hitting on the right guys, right? Like if you have X player paired with X player, their points end up adding up to more than other players who actually might have scored more points because of just the distributions.
God, what is Kitchen's underdog name? Because this might be it.
Not Swellness J.
Such a kitchen team.
That is such a kitchen team. Oh my God. Here's Ali. I think that's what that says. Ali with a very interesting team sitting in 13th, Spike Weaker here with 4 quarterbacks. Two of them, Trey Lance and Will Levis, are on this.
Jesus,
team. That is fascinating. The old double elite tight end.
I'm poor. And there's teams in the top 13 with Trey Lance and Will Levis on it, and I'm poor.
And Izzy Abanikanda, Izzy Abanikanda, DJ Chark, doesn't have DJ Moore, CMC obviously, and the 40. This is you want to talk about an onslaught that is fun. It's the 49ers onslaught, which is what you see here. Purdy with all of them, CMC, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle on this team. And then when you have that, and Cousins has been good, and you have Achane, Mostert, and David Montgomery, like, yeah, you're probably scoring a lot of points. A little thin at wide receiver here too. That was something also that I noticed on a lot of teams, is that even though you were saying like, oh, it's mostly like 5 and 6 wide receiver teams, there are still a lot of teams that I'm like, ooh, even though you have like 7 or 8 wide receivers, it's pretty thin. And that's the problem when the buys hit, is like, if you get any injuries and you start having buys, it gets tough at wide receiver. So that'll be some of the big shakeup. Let's look
real quick on that team. What are your thoughts on? So he looked like he onslaughted the 40. Well, doesn't look like, he definitely onslaughted the 49ers.
Oh yeah, with both
quarterbacks. And took both quarterbacks. But the point I was going to make is he does this gigantic onslaught, right? And the other 2 QBs he goes with is Kirk Cousins unstacked, and I think Levis is unstacked on this team as well.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on just, I don't like this team's construction. I'm just going to say that up front. I'm not trying to like talk myself into it. But in terms of onslaughting a team and then just letting the chips fall where they may with the other quarterback and not worrying about getting that stack, I don't think that's the worst case scenario. I personally wouldn't have done it this way. I'm also not in 13th place in this goddamn tournament. So take that as you will. But the fact that like he takes Kirk Cousins because he thinks he's the best available quarterback on the board, and he just doesn't worry about getting that stack for him. It essentially just becomes a 49ers team with ancillary pieces around it. Is Addison on this team?
Yeah,
disregard then.
That's all I was going to say.
Okay, I missed Addison.
He does have Addison, but to that point, he has 2 elite tight ends, neither of which are Hawkinson, right? And then he doesn't have Justin Jefferson, which is the general primary stacking partner with Cousins. But I still think even though he's stacked with Addison, your point is really still totally valid. I mean, I think the only issue I would say that I have with this entire team, and like you said, who am I to say? My best team's like 6,000th place, and this guy's in 13th. So what am I throwing stones in a glass house? But the Will Levis pick is definitely just the only issue, and it's possible as an auto pick or whatever. But if you toss Will Levis over into a wide receiver here, I think that this team is pretty awesome, even with Lance and Purdy. I know that that's crazy. I wouldn't recommend doing that like a lot, but I'm going to guess it was probably an early drafted team also because
right,
like an early team because there's none of the kind of the late guys. Izzy is on here, which was a much more of an early type pick. And Levis, we learned late in the summer, is not a thing. He's backing up Malik Willis. So I think this is a pretty early team, and just by Trey Lance being drafted and ahead of Brock Purdy. So I don't even think that that's terrible. Honestly, like I said, I wouldn't do it a lot, but I don't think it's crazy. Just to lock down the 49ers, just say, look, I'm going all in 49ers here, and I want to lock down the quarterback. The whole thesis is that the 49ers smash. So to your point, I think that's like whether he had Cousins stacked or not, I think it's totally fine. I think you prefer to have Cousins with Addison or something, but I don't see why you can't just say this team is going to go nuts all year, right? Dolphins and 49ers probably, I guess, are the two main teams that you would have wanted to do that with this year. Bills to a lesser extent, their running backs just suck. And you just say, hey, like you said, let the chips fall where they may. Hopefully I find Achane and Mostert around the 49ers. Hopefully I find DJ Moore around the 49ers or whatever. And just be like, that is what it is. I also like, this is definitely me being, totally biased because my team in first on drafters has the double elite tight end with Andrews and Kittle. But I think that was interesting this year. We've seen now multiple teams in the top, 15, 20 with the double elite tight end. Again, not something I'm necessarily overreacting to or trying to draw too many judgments from, but I think particularly with the falling prices of some of these guys, so Andrews third round was not so much falling, but there were times, man, Kittle would just plummet, right? He was kind of like the Trevor Lawrence of tight ends. It's like sometimes he goes at 60, sometimes he's like there at pick 80 or whatever. And it was like, I think doing that kind of stuff can make a lot of sense alongside the onslaught for the regular season scoring. So definitely interesting for sure. I do want to look at drafters really quick because I also want to pull up some of the teams to see. So shout out Cutler for life sitting in first on drafters. But unfortunately, tough week for the first place team with both Devin Achane and Justin Jefferson on here. Everything else obviously is still really strong. CPAT is an interesting one who's only 5% owned. But Waller, Chig, Everett is not inspiring a lot of confidence.
Unfortunately for you, Waller is still healthy.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly. You would like to just write it off and like just let me root for Chig, man. It's not, I know that's not pretty either, but at least like I don't have to watch the Giants anymore. The wide receivers are still good even without Justin Jefferson, but just going to be tough to hang in there. But I mean, a really good team and up by 5 points on second, and I guess second doesn't have Achane. Let me filter for the Achane teams first, and we can see which places do and don't have him. So interesting, only two in the top five have Achane. Obviously, we start to get more 6, 7, 8 all have him, but only two in the top five have Achane. So if I'm sitting in second and fourth and fifth, El Prez 365 punted off tight end, Schultz, Higbee, Hurst, elite quarterback with Jordan Love. I'm gonna call this zero running back with Swift as the first. A fucking Dalvin. What is this? Dalvin Cook, Chase Claypool, Devontae Parker. It tells you a lot about. You just need the hits. You're gonna have misses. The second place team here has some misses, and doesn't even have Achane, which is pretty crazy. But Mostert, Swift, Montgomery, Kyron, yeah, pretty darn good. Again, here the wide receivers are pretty good, not like completely blowing the doors off of everything. It's like, but that can be useful, right? Is like Michael Pittman's just going to turn out, especially with Minshew now, is just going to turn out good games. He's maybe not going to drop 40 ever, but just a lot of useful bodies.
Well, those first four were big hits too, right? Diggs is
Yep.
crushing. Keenan Allen is going nuclear. DJ Moore, who you can't draft, is going nuclear. Mike Evans is having a big contract year. I mean, his 64 is deceptive because he didn't even play this last week.
Right.
So
same for Keenan. He had a bye already.
Right. So he just absolutely hit like kind of the nuts at wide receiver early. So it's sustainability. The problem for him, to your point, is these guys have to hit because Michael Pittman is the only other one that's really going to contribute. Shaheed sometimes, but Parker is doing nothing. Chase Claypool. My favorite quote from I wish I remembered the Twitter user who did this. There was a quote from Mike McDaniel that said we weren't looking for wide receiver help, and then somebody quote tweeted and said, "You found the right guy then."
That was that. I don't remember who it was either, but it got retweeted a bunch across my timeline, and that was, I mean, legend. Put it in the hall, hang it in the Louvre. Yeah, that was an absolutely epic tweet. Yeah. So I mean, Chase Claypool is dead, obviously, but Deneric Prince. It is funny. It's just funny sometimes to see some of the teams, and it's not easy to necessarily see these teams on the leaderboards that we have out there now. So I really like going through the players that are on the teams because it can also be refreshing, right? Because we're like, it's so easy when we get to this point, like, I didn't draft that guy, or I look at all this, me every week, look at all these penny teams as he's sitting up in the press box or whatever, inactive. And it's like easy to lose yourself in kind of the frustrations of it all and not having the right combos and whiffing on some players you liked or whiffing on players you didn't like, Adam Thielen, etc. But like, look at
Eric.
Yeah.
Look at this third. I'm sorry. Look at this third place team. I just want you to name out the running backs, and then you're gonna see it.
Oh, I love it. Behave. First of all, the usernames here also. We had El Prez. We had what was it? Kitchens Burner, Precious J, or something like that.
Swell.
Yeah, whatever. Some J Swell J. Behave, also spelled in a really funny way. Sounds like a failed fucking Silicon Valley startup, some app or whatever. It's like a childcare app or whatever, It's
on-demand babysitters.
Did your babysitter canceled and you can't get off work today? Just download Behave and you'll have a new sitter to your house. They've all been cleared with our team, whatever. But anyway, Behave. Behave in third place. Just said he took your onslaught idea of the 49ers and said, I'm going to onslaught a team without the quarterback and just with all the goddamn running backs. And he drafted every single Dolphins running back alongside, you talk about unique, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, and Jeff Wilson, and Joshua Kelly has used 15 points from Joshua Kelly somehow with this team, and has Tyreek Hill as well. So, I mean, unique construction here for sure. I guess. Okay. Yeah. I got down to Thielen eventually. I was like, I can't figure out besides Tyreek where he's scoring wide receiver points. Jacoby Myers has been good for 2 weeks, but yeah, Myers and Thielen really carrying the rest of those wide receivers. But that is interesting.
Walks into a department store and he sees a shirt he likes and he can't figure out which color he wants it in, so he buys every color. That's what this drafting Achane, Raheem Mostert, and Jeff Wilson thing is. He's like, I don't know which one I want. I'm just gonna take all of them on the same team. I love it.
It does feel like me when I need a new just like workout shirt. I go to Target. You go to like the $15 Target workout section, and I'm like, I'm old, man. I don't know. Just give me like 5 of the colors of this same fucking stupid workout shirt, right? Like no one's ever gonna see me, but it's gonna get the job done. I'm gonna be fully clothed for all my workouts. And he was like, guess what? The Dolphins are gonna smash it with the running backs. I don't give a shit who it is. Give me all of them. Little did he know it was only gonna be 2 of them, and they were gonna both do it in every week. He's going to use both of their scores every single week. It also is funny. T-Kel 31 says, yeah, team 3, doesn't it feel like they have about 12, 13th round picks? And you're not totally wrong. Like, you start to stack them up. Yeah, all the Dolphins guys, Myers and Shaheed and Thielen and all these guys. It's definitely interesting to see how the teams come together. I do want to go through just a couple.
Just my last question about this team for you. How many times would you have to draft on drafters this summer to get this team? You get 150 bullets usually. What bullet number, like if you had unlimited, do you think you would get this team? Because I'm in like the millions for this team for me. There's just no way. Like, I'm just looking at the players on it. No way I draft this team.
I mean, so the only Derrick Henry teams and Adam Thielen teams I have are auto drafts. And so, like, we'll start there. I have basically just assume I have 0 Derrick Henry and 0 Adam Thielen. I also, of course, have 0 with 3 Dolphins running backs on it. And I literally never drafted Evan Ingram unless it was like if someone held a gun to my head or I'm doing something with Trevor Lawrence. From a player perspective, it doesn't get much further for me. It's elite quarterback. We talked about how I didn't love the elite quarterbacks. I didn't like Goddard. Like, I didn't like any of this really. And then you add in the construction with kind of 2 running backs I didn't totally love at the top and 3 Dolphins running backs and like millions. I would never ever land on this team. And so, that's not to say anything negative about behave or anything, but it is what I love is these things can like open your eyes to be like, all the shit we talk about all summer, all the rules everybody says you have to have, right? You can't reach, you can't draft DJ Moore, you can't handcuff your running backs, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't draft solo quarterback, you can't do all this shit. Like, none of it matters, dude. Absolutely none of it matters. We're trying to make the smartest decisions and build the best teams from a roster construction perspective. But that doesn't mean building the same way that everybody says all summer is the optimal way to do it. And you can see this, like, it really isn't anything crazy. It's different players than you and I like, but he drafted a bunch of like quality players and he just happened to triple stack the Dolphins backfield. And guess what? It's hitting. It's all hitting. Yeah. Everything is hitting on this team. And nobody did that, right? Nobody drafted 3 Dolphins running backs
with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, with Tyreek Hill, but then Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert, not Tua, Lawrence without Ridley, but with Kirk and Ingram, right? It's like, none of the stuff we really say matters all that much. Shout outs.
But make sure you subscribe to Spike Week and watch every show we do.
Exactly.
Press the like and subscribe button and all that fun stuff.
Exactly. So you can come back multiple times a week and hear us talk about how none of the shit matters that, we're talking about. But I did want to look at the Jefferson teams because I feel like much more so than Achane, although Achane teams, I think, can struggle because they've been a lot of them are often really counting on him. You know what I mean? Of course, you're counting on Jefferson. He's your freaking 101 and he's been awesome. But the Achane stuff, it's like the running back position is really not very good in fantasy football. So when you have a 13th round pick that's dropping 20 plus with a 50 burger on his docket through 5 games, it's so freaking impactful, man. And so that's big. But Jefferson, at least Achane is cheap. Right. And hopefully won't be out forever. So maybe you can weather the storm. Right. So like Achane on the first place team, Henry obviously has Mostert, Gibson, Kyron. You can weather the storm without Achane with that running back room. The problem then is Justin Jefferson. Right. If you have somewhat thin wide receiver rooms, like this is what, 7 wide receivers, nearly hit the nuts on the wide receivers outside of Puka, but still like, even when you have a bunch of awesome wide receivers, like DJ Moore's not going to score 50 every week. Like he's not even going to score 15 every week, right? Like Keenan Allen's not going to score 20 something every single week. And you can't be counting on like shout out Curtis Samuel and stuff. And like Nico's been awesome, but we just saw what happens. Like a couple weeks, he scores 4 fantasy points, right? And like, it's tough to maintain when you're pretty thin up there, but a lot less Jefferson teams up here than I thought. 1st, 4th, all the spike weekers. 1st place, 4th place, 30th place, 41st. So a little less Jefferson than I thought, which I guess just speaks to the strength of the first round that he's not up there.
Yeah,
much more.
I do think that that first place team that we just looked at with Jefferson, to your point, it's tough to replace that value, but he's got the right type of squad to do it, and that's
Yep.
just double threading that needle, right? I know we can't get into that analogy again. We'll be here for 15 minutes explaining it to you, but
especially with Achane in the conversation.
yeah,
And
but
he's changed his name since then. It would get even more confusing. It's a totally new name around the guy that we're talking about this analogy.
So I think the receivers are like the type that it's one of the better rooms for it, but it's still, we look at just when it is one of the better rooms, you see Jefferson still had 103 points that you're trying to replace
Right.
amongst these other guys. So it's just tough. It's so tough to do. So tough to do.
I totally agree. All right. We obviously talked a little bit longer on the leaderboards than necessarily planned for, but it was fun. I kind of like, digging into kind of where some things are standing. And it's like I said, not to keep beating that dead horse, but it is so fascinating and sometimes refreshing to see some of the top teams where you're like, like I said, my best team in BBM is like in like 6,000 something place. I'm dead to win any real money there in the regular season. And so, it can be easy to be like, God, I screwed up so many places. My teams look so bad. And then you look at the top ones and you're like, look at all those bad picks, or look at all the things that are kind of goofy with those top teams. And it just kind of shows you how chaotic the game is. Let's talk a little bit though quickly about week 6. We don't have to dive into every single game that is happening this week, but just kind of from the most notable games. I don't want to talk that much about Broncos Chiefs because it should be a bloodbath. Although the Broncos offense has been okay. It does look like Travis Kelce is fine. So that's good. No real injury concern there. We don't know about Javonte yet, so we don't really know what's shaking out in that backfield, but just nothing really standing out that much to me. Oh, I will say one guy that I think we keep talking about, Rashee Rice. I don't want to talk about him anymore, but I continue to feel good about him continuing to emerge. I do think Pacheco is a guy I feel good about teams that he's on, like better than I thought I would, honestly, because you just never know. Even with CEH playing with McKinnon there, whatever, you just never really, he never really popped like crazy last year, and he's popped once already this year. And I think there's just like a lot of high floor games and some more ceiling this year than we saw last year. So I feel pretty good about Pacheco, and I would feel good about him on Thursday too against that Broncos run defense.
And he's got control of that backfield. It's just Pacheco's backfield. There was injury concerns and stuff with him, so it all made sense why we were a little worried. But let's get into some of these other more fun games. This Bears Vikings. I know I'm just skipping over Commanders Falcons because I am, but this Bears Vikings.
My two highest exposure teams, you asshole. Well, you just want to skip right over Commanders.
I'm sorry. Let's talk about your weekly winners, Commanders Falcons team.
When Cole Turner catches 2 touchdowns, you're going to be really upset with yourself that you are bashing my Commanders weekly winners teams. No, I'm obviously kidding. I mean, that I love both of those teams for my best ball shares, but that's not like a super. The Falcons are going to muddy that one up. I think I will say it was nice to see both of those teams last week offensively. Obviously, Howell played well, and then the Falcons actually passed, and they're going to need to pass this week against that defense. So it is what it is. But Vikings Bears is the toilet bowl that is super fun for fantasy this week.
Well, it should be super fun for fantasy. What we're going to see, the Bears have that bad defense. We are going to see how the Vikings offense responds. And if they don't look good against the Bears defense this Sunday, wrap it up. Like, it's done. I don't know who you ship where. And the other, I don't know if you caught this little nugget. Schefter put out a tweet that said, if Jefferson's out for 4 games and he comes back and basically the Vikings are 1-8 or whatever,
right?
What's the incentive for Jefferson to play? That felt like a nugget that somebody chirped into
his agent's
ear.
Jefferson's agent told him that for sure.
Yeah, like why would I come back and play? I'm in my contract here. I'm trying to get paid. I'm not going to come back unless I'm 100%. So a little interesting there, which is scary. So the Vikings either need to show that they can still put up some offensive production against a bad defense, and if they can't do it against the Bears Bears. What accent did I just say that in?
Lions, Tigers, and Bears.
What was
it
that?
Bears?
Jesus Christ. If they can't do it against Chicago, we'll go that way. Then it's done, man. Like I'm calling it after a week if they can't put up 21 points against Chicago.
Right. Sucks for the Jefferson teams, especially now heading into this game. He would have had a monster game for sure. This is me. I will say needing a good Alexander Madison like next month until Achane gets back or Khalil Herbert gets back. This is at least a positive matchup to have Madison in. And if you have Addison, Hawkinson, right, these other guys, KJ Osborne, I still don't feel like super warm and fuzzy about KJ Osborne and Addison, Jordan Addison, but it doesn't get any better. No Justin Jefferson against the Bears defense. So we'll see what that's good. That's good from Derek. Bears need to go. That Bears need to go on the intro. And then I do good point from CJ. If you can weather the storm, obviously we were looking at regular season stuff for the first part with Justin Jefferson, but in your normal playoff format stuff, if you can weather the storm with Jefferson, like especially if you have Jefferson, Christian Watson, or Jefferson, Aaron Jones, as CJ's saying here, if you can somehow weather the storm and you got, these other guys that can get you through the regular season and Jefferson, right? Assuming Jefferson does come back and all that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be fun. That would be very fun to have. I think it's going to be tough given how good the rest of the first round is, given how hard it is to craft a team around, Watson being a dud and Jefferson going to be a dud for a month probably or more. It's going to be interesting. I'm definitely very interested to see it. I did just want to say Ravens Titans is like the Vikings Bears is the Depression Bowl.
Oh, I didn't even see it. That's how much I don't want to watch it.
Ravens Titans is just like, oh my God, these two teams. It should be for the 6th consecutive week a good spot for the Ravens passing game, but that would require someone to catch a fucking pass every once in a while. I don't know if you saw, they set the record for drops in a game since like 2019 or something like that. Andrews had 3, Zay had 2, Bateman had 2. Like they dropped 10 passes. They only threw 35. They dropped 10 of 35 passes. That is unbelievable to do in an NFL game, but this is a good spot. We'll see. The Titans suck. We don't even talk about them. Just praying for my late season Tyjae Spears shares. I've given up the rest. Yeah, this is a good one. We talked a lot about the fun one. Talked a lot about the Bengals yesterday. Seahawks off a bye, hopefully can get some offensive line back healthy, which could help invigorate a little bit of a shootout here. But I think this could be a nice little shootout if the Bengals, what we saw, maybe they get T back as well. Kind of continue to get a little bit better, back to their normal selves on offense, because I do think the Seahawks offense is good. It's been very inconsistent so far this year, mainly throwing the ball, but I think when they're right, they're really good. Passing, I don't think the Bengals defense is very good. I don't think the Seahawks defense is good. So this one's a pretty fun one to watch, especially obviously Chase off of the 50 burger.
Yeah, I'm going to look forward to this one. I'll probably be playing some DFS out of this, and the Bengals are going to go to 3-3. I've called every Bengals win so far. I might as well continue when I think they're going to win.
Well, fuck, it hasn't been that hard. They haven't won very many games.
But I've only said they're going to win the weeks that they've won.
That's true. That is true. This is a good one. Yeah, JT Devontae. Don't get Rob started on Devontae. Don't get me started on Devontae either. But I'm also rooting for Jonathan Taylor. I believe I have the best Jonathan Taylor team on Drafters. So we need him to come through right when the Achane stuff is fading out. But unfortunately, Zach Moss has something to say about Jonathan Taylor coming through. Maybe a little bit better real life game than fantasy game, 49ers Browns. But one thing I'll say, the Browns have a good defense. We don't know if Watson's going to play, which is an issue for a potential little bit of back and forth. But I think the 49ers, can we just, with the matchups and the defense and all of that kind of stuff, can we admit that none of that shit matters for the San Francisco 49ers? Like, if you were worried about 49ers against Washington, with you're putting your weather cap on or your week 17 defensive matchups cap on, like, Washington's defense is horrendous. So we were wrong about if we thought that they were good. And B, it doesn't matter how good the defense is against the 49ers because they're amazing and they're unstoppable, and no defense is going to have me concerned. If you have a 49ers player, good. You want them on your team.
Yeah, and this total is at 37.5, and the 49ers have put up 30 every single game, 30 plus every game. Ooh, it might just be time to hit that over just because San Francisco's playing, and you don't even worry about the other team if it's a 37.5
Right.
with.
They're gonna score 30. So can the Browns score once?
Probably not, but we can hope. And that Watson is doing everything he can to not play this game. So my money's guaranteed, bro. I don't gotta play shit. So.
Yeah, exactly. He let's not bring it back against the 49ers. He's like, I just saw what they did to Dak. Let's go ahead and sit this one out. I think they said they're not going to play DTR either if Watson doesn't play. So yeah, just a train wreck. Honestly, I know it's on the road, but 5.5 with Watson banged up feels pretty good. Here's another just dreadful. I know the Texans have been fun. Like, we're all excited. I feel good about your Nico, Tank Dell, CJ Stroud teams, Dalton Schultz, whatever, 100%. But this one, I don't have a lot to say. The Saints have been a very big disappointment for me thus far.
I mean,
Kamara, Kamara. I think feel good about the Kamara teams for sure. There was a couple up on some of the tops of the leaderboards that I think people should be really excited about because. Not that he's like even looked awesome, but my God, they're feeding him the rock, and that's all that really matters. So, got in the paint this week. Colts, Jags. Not so much from a best ball perspective, but I am like going to be locked into this one a little bit more than I maybe thought I would have, because I want to see. The Jags need to string together some good performances as opposed to just every once in a while popping up with a big game like they did in London against the Bills and then fading back into inconsistency. Whereas the Colts, I mean, this is a battle for the division. They're both 3-2. The Colts obviously no Richardson, but Minshew has been very good for them. And so from a fantasy lens, the receivers will be a little better with Minshew. And I think the Colts are just better than we thought. And are the Jags actually going to come out and dominate like they should, or are they going to go back into their shell like they do often? And so I'm actually pretty interested to see this one more so than a lot of these other games on this slate.
Yeah, we need to see that passing attack just string it together. And Lawrence seems to get better as the season goes on. So I'm going to be looking forward to that one. I'm not going to be looking forward to this next one.
No. If you had Achane, you're really tilting your face off because we're like, couldn't you just get us one more week? Because you got the Panthers coming to town, and he was going to drop another 200 yards or whatever on this pathetic defense. But now Mostert, the triple stacking Dolphins guy's probably feeling good if Jeff Wilson comes back. It's going to be a bloodbath. The Panthers stink. See,
dogs don't even want to watch it.
Dogs know the Panthers. Dogs know the Panthers stink. Dolphins gonna put up another bunch of fantasy points. It just depends who gets the touchdowns because they're going to score like 6 of them. So, my God, Patriots, Raiders,
Patriots East versus Patriots West.
This just keeps getting worse. This list just keeps getting worse.
This slate sucks.
If there was ever a time to, I don't know what's going on, to for the Patriots to actually produce some fantasy points. I mean, this is their shot because they can't do it against anybody else, and they have had a tough slate of defenses. If we really want to try to dig deep here, but I don't know, it's a mess.
Yeah, it's the Patriots are going to win this game. Not surprisingly, like they're going to beat Josh McDaniels. It's just the thing they're going to do.
The Raiders stink. I know they just won, but they stink.
Yeah, so if you're looking to do some betting, I would throw Patriots on a parlay or two just to boost that number here and there.
I like it. Lions Bucks, interesting game from probably a real life angle because the Bucks are so much better than we thought, and the Lions are continuing to churn out some wins. Both defenses have also been a lot better than expected. The Lions got kind of shredded by the Seahawks, but other than that one game, they've played really well on defense. And the Bucks outside of like the big Mike Evans game haven't really been all that fruitful for fantasy, and they're playing, kind of slow and playing good defense. And I'll watch, of course, after an afternoon game. We only get so many of those, but kind of another one where I'm more interested from a real life perspective. And, David Montgomery is good if there's no Gibbs. Laporte is still good, right? ASB is going to be back, and it's all well and good. It's just like not one of the most fantasy exciting games for me on this slate.
I do want to see what Evans does in this game coming off the bye week. Tweaked his hamstring because God forbid he doesn't tweak his hamstring every other game. So to see if they're still targeting him at a high rate and down the field will be nice to see, because he still might be a trade target. I know they're overperforming versus what we thought, and it's been quiet on the trade front, but I wouldn't be shocked if they still pull the trigger on a trade for one of those two wideouts.
They're not gonna like hang up if you call and try to talk about it, right? It's probably the price has gone up, I'm sure, since the winning start and since Mike Evans having a good start. But I don't think it's not over yet for a potential trade there. Cardinals Rams. Now we're talking, and that sounds crazy, but you remove James Conner. Cardinals have been a lot more functional on offense, although they struggled a little bit this past week. And I don't know if I said this yesterday to you or I said it Sunday on the show that I'm just in on this Rams offense. Like I'm all the way in. As long as Matthew Stafford is healthy, like even with some of the issues on the offensive line, I know they only scored 14 points last week, but that was, I think, actually a little bit fluky. No matter what happens, no matter their matchup, they moved the ball up and down the field. They looked unreal in the first half with both Kupp and Puka just kind of dominating. Tutu did have one bad drop. They're just good. It's just a really good offense. So, I mean, you see a 48.5 total here. Compare that to what was the 49ers total? It's 38.5. So you see the difference in offensive expectation here.
I bet the under on this game, though. We got a division game. The Cardinals seem to be kind of coming back down to what we thought they were going to be. Connor out. I think that's an easy game to bet the under on, to be perfectly honest. I still think the Rams, cook, but I just think that the Cardinals aren't going to hang on that game.
Looks like, with James Conner out, this would have been the time. Shout out to our good friend and Spike Weeker, Silas, who was driving the Keontae Ingram bus for the last 2 years. Conner finally goes down, and I don't think Keontae's healthy. And he also might have got Wally pipped by Amari Emery. I don't know how to say his first name. Amari DiMercado. Yeah, from Kendre Miller's backup at TCU. Just Wally pipped Keontae Ingram. Weird situation going on out there, but we'll see. Eagles, Jets. I got nothing. The Brees game was really fun last week, but it ain't gonna happen this week.
No, but this is this just from a DFS perspective, this feels like the perfect game to get like a Jalen Hurts stack, because people are gonna be so scared of this Jets defense that Hurts can just explode at really low ownership and just win you all the money, right? So I think that's something to keep an eye on when you're building teams.
Two games I am much more excited about, again, mostly from a best ball angle. Bills Giants on Sunday Night Football, not because the game is going to be good, not because I'm excited for any Giants, but if you have Bills on your team, how many points are they about to go hang? Like, how bad are they going to whip up on the Giants, especially Daniel Jones possibly hurt? This should be, I mean, as you see with a 14-point spread, should be a good old-fashioned butt whooping. I just want to get this out of the way because I'm gonna slightly contradict myself. I'm not actually hopeful for Damian Harris in this game. Okay, I'm expecting another 1.8 fantasy points. However,
the reverse jinx. I gotcha.
If there were ever going to be a game where he did something this year, theoretically, this sets up for the Damian Harris game. It's not going to happen, but just let me.
Okay, you can't go reverse jinx.
That's the whole.
That's
point.
What you just tried to do.
You put so much chaos out there in the world that even the fantasy football gods don't know what to do.
You just went reverse. It was reminiscent to Elijah Moore running back 40 yards and getting tackled.
Yeah, that was great.
Can we just not put the Giants in primetime games every week?
Don't they have like 3 more? I think they have like 3 more primetime games.
This is agony. Let's cut this shit out. This is the 3rd or 4th one already this year. We don't want to see the Giants in primetime. I know they're from New York, Guess what? It's 2023. Markets don't matter as much anymore.
Right.
They still matter a little bit, but people just want to watch football specifically for fantasy purposes. Your ratings are going to be through the roof anyways. You don't need to pad it by putting the goddamn Giants that nobody wants to see. I'm probably not going to watch the second half of this game, at least after the Bills come out and just stomp a mud hole in them.
It's going to be 35-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus.
You want to hold ratings, don't put the Giants on there. Like, I don't think you should do it with any team just because you never know what could happen in the course of a season. But of all teams, the Giants to do it with, I would have understood the Eagles. I would have understood the 49ers. Hell, the Bills, a fun team like Miami, the Chiefs. But the Giants are getting every primetime game. NFL, let's relax.
Yeah, Miami, San Francisco, noted tiny markets, right? We can't we can't have teams from Miami and San Francisco and LA and all. We can't put those on. Got to go to everything is so New York. I know it's huge and all that kind of stuff, but it is a little bit silly. Last one, and maybe the game of the week. Certainly one of the games of the week. Cowboys Chargers. Chargers fresh off of their bye. Cowboys fresh off of. The team basically took a bye in that game. They certainly did not show up to play against the 49ers, took a whooping. And I'm interested. The Cowboys offense has been incredibly underwhelming all season, even in the games where they're winning 40-0 or whatever. They've been terrible on offense. At least even when they're moving the ball, they peter out in the red zone. It's been bad. It's been really bad. I keep assuming better days are ahead, but this will be the time. Like, if better days are not ahead against the Chargers off of that ass kicking you just took, then I do think it panic meter time comes in Dallas. But I suspect we'll get some scoring here against the Chargers. And the Cowboys defense, while still good up front, is clearly, it's the 49ers, but they're much more vulnerable now, right? No Trevon Diggs,
banged up,
and hurt. So I think we'll have some fun fireworks here.
Funny how your offense becomes stagnant when you get rid of the offensive coordinator that just wanted to score all the points, and that was your negative. You wanted to score too much. I bet you wish you were scoring some points right now. I bet you wish you were able to put some points on the board in Dallas at the moment. And to Hacker's point, now they're playing against Kellen Moore. And you want to talk about a coach revenge narrative? I wouldn't be shocked if Kellen Moore just is like, well, let's just hang whatever we can hang on these guys. And he had 2 weeks to plan for him, too, is the other thing.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, I'm rooting for him. I don't really have allegiances to either of those teams. I couldn't care less about the Chargers, but the Cowboys scapegoated this dude who was the least of their concerns. That's what I don't understand. Is it's one thing, Brandon Staley has made a lot of, analytics decisions. All he's doing is being aggressive, going for it a lot. But if people want to slander him for doing that, that's fine, because he's the one making the decision. You may disagree with it. That's fine. But they scapegoated Kellen Moore when he was one of the best OC. It didn't make it. There was. None of it made any sense, right? He was the guy, actually one of the few coaches and decision makers, front office people, any of that, making your team better, and they turned him into the problem. And now, what a fucking surprise! Mike McCarthy's back calling the plays, and your offense can't score any points when your defense doesn't have 2 pick sixes. You're losing, to the Cardinals, and you're getting destroyed by the 49ers. Just not a surprise. Couldn't happen to a better franchise in the old Dallas Cowboys.
I love it so much.
But that is about it. We'll be back, of course, every Monday and Tuesday. Mondays kind of recapping what happened here in this week 6. Tuesday's kind of a little bit of a look ahead. We'll definitely be mixing in, as I mentioned a little bit last night, resurrection drafts, and certainly when playoff best ball gets here, some DK in-season stuff and NBA. We're going to be mixing in all sorts of that different stuff. We'll also mix in things like we did with the leaderboard here today. We're keeping it flexible, trying to keep it fresh and light. But I know Rob's got to run to go talk about some ghosts. I've been looking at ghosts in my best ball lineups all day. Rob's got to talk about some actual ghosts, but anything you got before we get out of here?
Just in terms of the ghost, I know it's spooky season, so I'm just going to bring it up. Go back and listen to last week's Hometown Ghost Stories episode 99. the House of Death in New York City. It's not about the New York Giants, I promise you. It's the House of Death. We had the narrator from Scare You to Sleep come in and do the opening ghost story. I don't know how I do another show. She absolutely crushed it. Just absolutely crushed it. So go to Hometown Ghost Stories, look for that episode specifically, listen to that opening story because it was amazing. I wrote it, but she just absolutely nailed it. So
I love it. Make sure you go check that out. And if you're not, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we got lots and lots of good stuff coming out. And go check out that leaderboard. I'll make sure and try to get get the link added to the description, but also it's just spikeweek.com. Look in the header. There's something called Leaderboards. You'll be able to find it from there. But for myself, Rob, all the dogs and all the ghosts during spooky season, we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace. Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.